I'm Lee Pacchia, and you are watching Stealth Lawyers. This week we're talking to Paul Mecurio. Now, you might not know this, but before he had a successful career in comedy, Paul was a M&A lawyer and an investment banker. Since making a profound career change, Paul became a member of the original writing team for Comedy Central's The Daily Show and has since picked up an Emmy Award and a Peabody Award for his work on the program. In addition to his numerous stand-up and television appearances, he's also popped up as a political commentator on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. Probably hard to keep all those gigs straight. Anyway, we're very happy to have him join us.
Oh,
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Where'd you grow up, Rhode Island?
I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, Italian family, like middle-class, blue-collar family. Parents have a furniture business. Got a couple of cousins that are, a little mobbed up a little bit.
They're into the Providence, Rhode Island
Yeah,
thing.
you know, it is what it is.
And then you went to law school in Washington, D.C.,
yeah,
which is a completely different kind of town.
Yeah, I wanted to get out of town, because if I stayed in Rhode Island, I would have ended up in the mob.
You would have been running numbers.
I would have been running numbers with plastic on the furniture. And, oh, by the way, now, if you need a mattress, my cousin is selling used mattresses.
Nice.
He goes to the dump, and he gets mattresses that have been thrown up, and he has them resurfaced with new fabric, and he sells them.
Your cousin's name isn't Bob, is it?
No,
it's not Bob's Discount Furniture. That's not what we're talking about.
No, I never even put that together.
That's a New England reference for you watching at home.
That is nice. You can get a recliner for $62. I'm sure it'll last a long time.
The deals are amazing.
So I got out of there, and I ended up in D.C. because I was looking for more murder in my life, and I said, let's go to D.C.
Where'd you go to law school in D.C.?
I went to Georgetown.
How was that?
And that was amazing and hard. The first year was really hard. You know, it was 6 required courses all coming at you. You remember tort law, constitutional law, all that civil procedure. And, you know, you're top of your game in college, and then you get in that pool, and it's like, you know, you're like, it's sometimes, you know, you're like a salmon swimming upstream. But it was great. And between my first and second year, I had a clerkship when they broke up the Baby Bells. I worked with one of my professors was a magistrate for that. So I worked on that. And then between my second and third year, I did a summer associateship in New York City, which is really not working. They make you pretend like you're working, and they take you around the city, and they wine you and dine you. And then once they have you full-time, it's like indentured servitude. And then I came to New York full-time to practice law.
Interesting. So when you were in law school, did you have any idea that you were going to end up in such a different field?
You know,
I mean,
I was always kind of funny, and I was writing funny stuff, and I had ideas for funny jokes, and I lived I lived in a place that lent itself to comedy. I lived in a basement apartment of a townhouse on Capitol Hill, and my neighbors who lived upstairs in the townhouse were a 63-year-old gentleman who was an alcoholic cook who was also gay, but he was a grandfather, so he came out later in life. Interesting guy. And then his roommate was a 300-pound phone sex operator who sold Herbalife diet products door to door. I kid you not.
Right.
So she would have this big muumuu on with a button that says, "I'm in Herbalife," or "How about you?" So during the day she was doing that, and at night she was making phone sex calls, and I was right underneath her, and
taking notes.
Taking notes, but then hearing some of the stuff and getting grossed out and having to go outside because I knew what she looked like and what she was saying to the world. You know, these people on the phone sex operators, they don't always tell the truth. I was shocked.
Right.
They're not necessarily putting forth an honest product. So anyway, I started writing short skits and film ideas based on sort of that experience and just observing life around me.
So were you the guy in back of evidence writing a screenplay?
Right, I was like, yeah, I had to.
I feel like every law school class has one of those guys.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes two.
Well, it actually started to happen when I got to the law firm. I ended up at Wilkie Farr and Gallagher here in New York City, and I was doing corporate law, and I was really starting to write like jokes at that point. And then I got to see Jay Leno perform at a private function, and one thing led to another. And I went up to him at the end of the appearance, and I said, "Look, I don't know if you want jokes, but I have all these jokes, and I don't know what to do with them." And I gave him the jokes, and he's like, and he takes it right. And I get like 50 feet away, and he goes, "Come back here." I go, "What?" I go, "What?" He goes, "You might want to put your name and your phone number on here so I know how to reach you, right?"
Oh, very cool.
So he was cool. So he called me the next day, and he goes, "Hey, your stuff is funny and clean. I'll hire you to send jokes in for the Tonight Show monologue. And if I use something, exactly, I'll pay you," right? I was like totally blown away, right? So he calls me a week later. He calls me again himself, at which point I go, "Why are you calling me? Like, you have people that have people that have people to make these." He goes, "Well, I like to keep in touch with the guys who are writing for me." And he goes, "I'm going to do one of your jokes on this show." and he did one of my jokes that night, paid me $50 for the joke, and it was the most powerful thing I'd ever seen in my life. It blew my head off my shoulders because, and I was working on M&A deals, like these big hostile deals, 24/7, all-nighters. I mean, you remember, back in your day, before you became a huge television celebrity, where you don't even look
distant
people.
past.
Yeah, you don't even look people in the eye, and you have people who make phone calls for you. I know what your life is like now. It was impossible. It was impossible to get through to this guy. Yeah. He had people, and then I had to talk to other person. Anyway,
they're good handlers.
They are. They're very good.
We have great bookers.
They are, and they really they enable him in a lot of ways, which I can't.
This isn't all candy and roses.
So, I became obsessed at that point with writing and the jokes, to the point where you joked about being in evidence and writing the screenplay. I literally would have 2 notebooks at deal meetings, and one was for the deal, and one was for jokes, and I wasn't taking any deal notes. I was taking joke notes. And I'd have to go back and recreate the minutes of the meeting, and I had no idea, what happened, because I was so focused on, observing the room and taking notes.
Well, you took another job after Wilkie, right?
Yeah,
you didn't go straight into comedy after the law.
No,
firm.
I kind of started to live this secret double life, and then I was doing law by day and comedy by night, and then I went over to investment banking, to then First Boston, now Credit Suisse, to do M&A investment banking, same deals, just on the other side of the table, all the while I'm doing this comedy at night. So what ended up happening was the comedy went from writing for Leno. He said go out and try the jokes, so I started to go out at night and do the jokes myself to try them out, and I became hooked like a drug addict. I was getting a laugh now. So I started to literally live a secret double life where I would work on these deals, and we'd have a dinner break around 7 o'clock, and I'd sneak out of work, and I'd go to these dive bars around New York City and do these open mic nights, and then go back to work. So I'd have a car pick me up, take me downtown. I take my suit coat off. I try to look as downtown as I could. I change up in the car like some pathetic superhero, and then I'd have the car drop me off like a block from the club. And these were bad places. One of the places was called Downtown Beirut 2. And I loved the 2 because they were either franchising these hellholes, or Israeli. I think Israeli fighters took out the first one. And it was the kind of place where people on the streets borrow money from you to go drinking. Yeah. This is where they go to drink, right?
Yeah.
And there was a pimp that worked out of there. There was a hooker. The bathroom door the sign on the bathroom door said, "The toilet seat is only to be used to go to the bathroom, not to cut coke. Thank you, the management." This was and it said, "Thank you, the management," which I love.
That's old New York.
Right. And so I basically would go to these clubs and I'd wait. And then I was dealing with drunk hecklers. So this was my life for about a year and a half. But I was starting to have a nervous breakdown because I was hiding it from everybody. I couldn't let anybody in the corporate world know that I was a comedian.
Yeah, you must be very adaptive. I mean, some people would say just going from the law firm and working on the M&A transactions there, and then going to the other side is a big jump.
Right.
But then going from a joke writer to a stand-up is another big jump. And juggling all that must have been...
And I couldn't tell my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We were living together, and when I finally revealed what I was doing, she goes, "Oh, thank God." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Well, I thought you were cheating on me." I go, "Why?"
How long did that go on for? How long were you hiding this secret comedy lifestyle?
2 years. And I'm not kidding. And it got back to the point, the night job, my wife thought I was cheating because I was coming home with beer and cigarette smoke. I went to the club one night, and I'm getting heckled, and you had to have comeback lines for drunk hecklers, and all of a sudden the guy got his neck slashed, he's bleeding, I make a joke about him getting cut with a knife, he hears me, and he turns and he goes, "Hey, you talking to me?" And he takes all these bloody napkins and he throws them at me, and they stick to my shirt, my white Brooks like a shirt like yours. Now, a normal person at this point says, "Get off stage." I stay, I finish, I go back to the firm, right, and the deal had blown up. I got a big blood stain on my shirt. My senior partner's screaming at me, "Where have you been? What have you been? Why do you have a blood stain on your shirt?" And then before I could say anything, one of the lawyers goes, "What kind of shirt is that?" I go, "It's a Brooks Brothers." He goes, "Oh, yeah?" He goes, "I know how to get blood out of a Brooks Brothers." He goes, "You want a little lemon juice and club soda?" And another guy goes, No. If you want to get blood out of a shirt, Armani, that's the shirt." And they started to compete over what was the better shirt to get blood out of.
Banker bros know how to do stuff like this.
Exactly. And it got to the point where I was so in the mode of being a comic that one day we were in a negotiation, and this lawyer in front of everybody said to me, he goes, "This is a terrible," he said something I'd written in the document was a writing. He goes, "This is a terrible document." He goes, "I could have drafted a better document in my sleep." He said that to me. And I literally mumbled, but loud enough to be heard. I said, I thought I was in stand-up heckle mode.
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh, yeah, I could have been your father, but the dog beat me over the fence." and everybody was like, oh, nobody knew what to do. So I realized at that point that I was sort of the beginning of the end of my career on Wall Street. So 2 years of that double life And that continued from the law firm when I was at the investment bank, with my wife not knowing. So I was hiding from my personal life in these two worlds, and I was sort of juggling all of this. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I was having a nervous breakdown before I was 30.
You talk about these characters that were working in M&A, both on the legal side and on the banking side.
Right.
How many of them can make the jump? How many Paul Mercurios are working as lawyers right now and have a shot at going out and becoming a successful comedian?
I think anybody can do it, but you really have to be wired a certain way, which is to be prepared to sacrifice everything and start over again and give up
and deal
comfort.
with the lack of structure.
And deal with the lack of
exactly
structure.
A career path for
My
someone
wife's
like that.
been talking me off this. The first few years, my wife had to talk me down from the ceiling a lot of times over, especially coming out of the M&A world. It's very like ABCD, right? You work for a Wilkie Farr or a big investment bank. You have all the resources at your disposal to do whatever you need to do. We got to get this merger done in 4 days. You stay up all night. You put 50 people on it, whatever. So you're used to set out a plan, which was my whole life, right? And then you execute the plan. In the entertainment business, even huge talent is at the whims of something bigger than they are, right? So you get a deal set up and you're ready to shoot a show, and then it falls apart. Or someone's supposed to call you, they don't call you when they say they're going to call you. Everybody's going to, hey, let's do lunch, and then it doesn't happen. And that's a cliche, but it's kind of true. And so I had to get used to adjusting to that kind of sort of laissez-faire kind of, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Jay Leno just calls you out of the blue.
Jay Leno just calls you out of the blue, right? So it's sort of like that was a big adjustment for me because I tend to be very sort of business-oriented. So I don't know how many people can make the jump, because in making the jump, see, I've seen people trying to make the jump and have it both ways. In other words, still have the security of that, and then, but you're only going to go so far in the new endeavor if you don't pour everything you have into it.
At some point you have to completely make the jump.
Well,
That's
right.
hard.
I think in entertainment, especially for performers who have been doing it a while and make it look easy, people think, oh, yeah, you just roll out of bed and then suddenly you're a brilliant comedian or actor or musician or host. It takes a lot of commitment, time, education in that world, experience, failure, to get to the point where you're really at the top of your game. So you can't be doing a full-time job and think you're going to be at the top of your game in this world or any other profession. At some point you do have to kind of fish or cut bait, which is what I was faced with. I was at a point where I'm about to get married. Either I do this now or I'm going to look back and say I should have.
Yeah.
Because I'd reached critical mass. It stopped being a hobby, and then it was like, okay, this is a hobby that's killing me. If I want a hobby, I should go golf. If I don't want this to be a hobby and I want this to be a career, I either need to make it a career or stop.
Yeah.
And it was a really scary decision, and I had my doubts. And when I actually made the jump, I had a 2-bedroom co-op on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I had everything, the suits, the cufflinks, and I sold it all, and I kept my car, and I moved to a rooming house in Queens, which was a halfway house for 2 ex-cons and 2 recovering addicts. And I had a little 10 by 12 room with a hot pot on the floor, and I was sharing a bathroom with these people, and I was living like a student again. And I had to start over. And it was scary because I'm about 2 months in, and I'm making $50 here, $20 there.
And you brought up failure before. Was there ever a moment, a gig or something that just went so bad, you must have thought to yourself, what happens?
Yeah.
What happens next? I mean, that happens in everyone's career, I'm told. I mean,
there were 3 things that happened within about a 1 month span of time that pushed me kind of over the edge, and I actually went back to Wall Street for a little while. I was living in this rooming house, and I was living the life, and at first it was exciting, and then it was like, I'm looking over my shoulder like, oh man, what have I given up? I was freaking out. I threw it all away. Not glamorous at all. And then I went to work a club in Connecticut, and I was just a host, opening act. The guy running the club was basically a degenerate. He wasn't paying his bills. There was no heat in the club. We were doing, it was a big club too, doing shows in our overcoats in February. You could see your breath. 5 shows. I get off stage the end of the night, the end of the weekend to get paid, and the bounce goes, hey, the owner's gone. He didn't leave you a check. The guy stiffed me on my money. It was $250 total for the weekend. So I spent the next 2 weeks chasing the guy for my money, and then he stiffed me again. And I'm like, this is a guy in my life on Wall Street we would not have trusted to go get lunch for us.
Yeah.
Now, these were the people in control of my life. So it became a bigger issue for me of like, okay, well, this is like, I gotta come to terms with the fact that I've given up my life to these people. Then I got audited by the IRS because they thought I was hiding money because I had a lot of income and then I had no income, right? Yeah, you laugh. It's my life.
Oh,
you
man.
don't care sitting here in your ivory tower.
Pours, you know?
Right? So I'm in the audit, and this auditor from the IRS became the personification of all the doubts I was having because he's going through my returns and he goes, you got a lot of income and then now you have a big loss. What's going on? I go, I was a lawyer, investment banker. I turned to be a comedian. He goes, yeah, right. Seriously, what was it?
Really?
I go,
He didn't believe you?
He didn't believe me. He thought I was hiding money. I had to have my lawyer come in and basically, testify that what I was saying was truthful. And then my car got flooded out. My Saab, the only thing I really cared about at that point, got flooded out in a storm, and everything was corroded. And I was driving it after it was flooded, and I was driving, and the lights would just flicker on and off on their own, and people coming in this direction thought I was giving them signals, and they'd flicker back to me, and their signals seemed to be Morse code, like, what have you done with your life? You screwed up. And at that point, a friend of mine was working at another investment bank and starting up a division and needed help, and he said, come back, so I went back. And I quit comedy, moved back to New York City, recreated my life, 2-bedroom apartment, new stereo, new everything, new suits, got my girlfriend back, moved her back into the city with me, swore off comedy. 2 months later, I was back in the clubs doing comedy again like a junkie. And I realized like it was kind of in me and I was trying to suppress something that wanted to come out. But it was a very scary couple of years of like, should I do this? Did I make the right decision? And anybody that tells you it's not scary is lying to you. Nobody makes a break like that clean, you know?
And life is not a straight line. It's
no, not at all, you know? And it ultimately, what I found out that I got the most support from the people I was the most embarrassed to tell, which were the people on Wall Street. Because I thought they'd judge me and say, oh, you're whatever. And most of them, almost all of them were like, good for you. I always I started to write a book, and then I got the money and the bonuses and the house in the Hamptons and blah, blah, blah. And the thing that really set my mind at ease was we were doing a sale of a big HMO in Arizona. I had shot a TV show and forgot about it, like a 6-minute stand-up spot on a TV show. They aired it several months later. I'm in Arizona. We're at a big meeting with bankers and lawyers from all these major firms, and the CEO of the company comes in and he goes, hey, did I see you on TV last night? I'm like, no. He goes, yeah, I think you were doing it. I go, no.
No, that wasn't me.
And I forgot about it. He goes, yeah. And I was like, oh, God. And I just remember it was like the longest minute of my life. I just sat there like saying, oh, God.
Now, is that something you didn't want him to know necessarily?
I didn't want him to know because
forget?
This was my second tour of duty on Wall Street. This is after I left comedy, went back to Wall Street, recreated my life. I was worried that the minute he found out, my bosses at the bank would find out, and they'd be like, that's not acceptable behavior. You're either fired or whatever. And he was like, it was great. He's a 65-year-old guy, runs a big HMO in Arizona. He goes, hey, everybody, my investment banker's a comedian. What do you think of that, right? And he brings everybody, he goes, let's go see it. He tried to set up a night of stand-up for people to come and see me.
Cool.
So he gave me the approval that I needed. And I found out later what he liked about it was that it humanized me to him, that I wasn't just this sort of money-grubbing, cold, calculating investment banker who was all about the numbers, but there was another dimension to me. And I ended up really becoming kind of his favorite on the deal because I was like a normal guy to him. So there were a couple of life lessons for me in that I did not expect to get, which is a sort of in making a move like that, you never know how people are going to view it. And I've gotten a lot of nice words about from people in the world of money and finance and law and outside of it going, good for you. I always wanted to try to do something that I was really passionate about and didn't. And I get a lot of people when I tour around the country saying that as well. Like, I'm an engineer, but I really want to be a painter, and should I do it? Or kids who are in college saying, yeah, I'm a med student, but I really don't want to do medicine. I want to write. And I just say, well, you really should go try it because you can always, my feeling was I could always go back to law in some capacity or banking somewhere, right?
So what's next? You have a couple projects coming up.
You and I going out, a little party time tonight.
Right.
I got it set up. I got, we're going to go to a couple of clubs. I got a big bottle of Belvedere ready with your name on it. Yeah, absolutely. We know how you roll. Yeah. And I'm going to be, I'm on the cable news shows a lot. I'm going to be on Fox News on Red Eye with Greg Gutfeld coming up. I'm going on Hannity. I'll be on CNN. And I've got 2 shows that I created, an animated show and a scripted half-hour based on my life story that are getting developed. And
very cool.
Yeah, we have a great director attached to my...
Where can we see those?
They're not up and running. They're not bought yet, but we are in production and getting those developed. And you can see me on tour at November 29th to December 2nd at Toledo Funny Bone, December 6th through the 9th at the D.C. Improv in Washington, D.C., and Columbus Funny Bone, December 12th to the 16th. So I'm kind of all over the place, and people can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff.
Very good. Paul, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's comedian Paul Mecurio. If you'd like to learn more about the issues we just discussed, be sure to check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. You can see more of our videos on YouTube, and of course you can follow our updates on Twitter. I'm Pacchia. Thanks for watching.